Hi, fellow traveler. This is Cari Jackson speaking from my home. So, welcome to my home. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope." And that's what I want to talk about today. In our society, many of us have been taught to live in a very either or dualistic way, that either we have hope or we don't. Either things are fine or they are not. And this moment that we're living in together is filled with so many different things all at the same time. And so knowing how to manage that can be really challenging. So, how does one sustain hope in the midst of so much dying and so much pain, suffering? Every day, I get calls and texts about a loved one who has died or is dying, or who is in the hospital, who is on oxygen, who is on ventilation. It's wearying. It's overwhelming. How do I sustain hope in the midst of that? I had this very weird experience. I say weird because it was the first time I'd ever experienced it, and I didn't quite know how to manage it. A week ago, I participated in an online Zoom funeral service. Hadn't had that experience before. And when we were viewing our deceased loved one, I'd never viewed someone on the computer before, viewed their body. So, how do we sustain hope? When I was a little girl, my mom used to say all of the time, "Where there's life, there's hope." And she would say that as she was trying to hold on to some measure of hope when one of her children or someone else had disappointed her one more time. Where there's life, there's hope, she would say. And then through the years, I came to understand the corollary of that is true as well, and that is where there's hope, there's life. Perhaps you've heard about the story of the Valley of Dry Bones in Ezekiel. Once Ezekiel follows God's instruction and speaks to the dry bones, as the dry bones begin to be renewed and restored. Once they were able to, once they were living beings and able to speak again, they were a mighty army. And they said, "We died because we lost hope." It wasn't even the enemy so much that killed them. And apparently they had a formidable enemy they had gone up against, as we have now. But they died because they lost hope. So, how do we sustain hope? Well, I want to offer these 5 things that I think are really valuable for sustaining hope. One is to think about those moments in your life where the odds were against you and you still overcame what you were dealing with. Every last one of us has such a story. I know when I think back on my own life and the things I've overcome, sometimes I'm just absolutely overwhelmed. Yeah, I can be pissed about having gone through those things. I could stay there. But I overcame. I'm here, able to reflect back on it. I'm overwhelmed. I'm amazed. And then that reflection on that which I've overcome spurs within me a deep gratitude, which is number two for sustaining hope. Many years ago, when I was pastor of a church in Brooklyn, I was talking with one of the members in the church, and she was sharing the despair that she was living, that so much in her life was wonderful, and she had this very high paying, very influential job, but there was an emptiness in her. And with that came a desperation. And so I invited her to write a gratitude journal. I said, every day, write down at least 3 things you're grateful for. She started doing that. And it's been, I think, over 10, 12 years now that she has continued that practice. And it's not just 3 things every day. I remember also another woman I was counseling many years ago who was chronically depressed. And that was not because of the kinds of tragedy she had experienced in her life. I mean, tragedy after tragedy, heart-wrenching stuff. And I encouraged her to write down just 3 things that you're grateful for. I said, even if it is you're grateful that the sun is shining today, grateful that you have a home that you live in. Not because it's all perfect, but that you have a home to live in. Grateful that you have breath in your body that gives you opportunity for something else. And this woman said, I can't even find something I'm grateful for. I said, okay, I hear you, but I'm going to challenge you. 3 things, no matter how small you might think those things are, no matter how insignificant you think those things are. And so she did that. And her list grew and grew, and so did her attitude and her perspective about life. Not because everything magically became wonderful and great. There was a change in her perspective. Sounds number 2. Gratitude. What is there that you can be grateful for in this moment? I've been journeying with a friend whose wife died 10 days ago. That was the funeral I attended online. And one of the things he's been so grateful for is just the power of the love that he and his wife shared. I mean, it was a powerful, powerful love. Is he happy that she is no longer with him? Of course not. But he's so grateful that they had the time together that they did. So, remembrances of things you've overcome, gratitude. And a third thing is compassion. I think gratitude often can spur in us and inspire in us compassion for other people. Compassion really means, from the Latin, means to suffer with, to be right in there with somebody. So many of us are encouraged to have compassion and appreciation and gratitude for those who are experiencing COVID-19 in their own bodies. I'm grateful that I'm well, I'm healthy, but I have the depth of compassion for those who are experiencing the difficulty of breathing. I have deep compassion for their loved ones. I know what it is to experience that journey with a loved one and you feel helpless and there's nothing you can do to fix their health condition at that time. I have compassion for those. I have compassion for the healthcare providers who are doing their absolute best, even as they're risking their lives, to help others to live, to help others have the kinds of medical supports so their bodies can fight off what's going through. I have compassion for all those first responders who then go home and want to make sure they are not infecting their loved ones. I have compassion for their loved ones who worry about them every time they go to work and they're working those 12, 13-hour shifts. One of my dear friends in her home right now is her husband, who is a trauma care physician, her son and his partner, both of whom are nurses, and her son is working in COVID units, and her daughter, who has a heart condition, who had COVID-19 symptoms. She's recovering now, thankfully. But I have a lot of compassion for my friend as she is juggling, dealing with all of those every day, her loved ones who are going into hospitals, putting themselves in harm's way. And as she is caring for them when they return, and as she is caring for her daughter, absolute compassion for her. Now, would my worry help her? No. But my compassion, yes, because my compassion prompts me to prayer. Now, here's the thing about compassion as well. In this time, we must also have self-compassion. We must give ourselves a break for when we don't get things just right. We must have a break, give ourselves a break in those moments when our hearts are heavy and it feels that we can't even find the words to pray. Have compassion for yourself. We're all in this. It is heart-wrenching. It is wearying in ways many of us could never, or I'll say all of us, could never have imagined. Give yourself a break. Have compassion for yourself while you're having compassion for others too. So remember those obstacles you've overcome. Yes. Connect with gratitude. Yes. Have compassion for others and yourself. And the fourth thing I want to say is about finding meaning in this experience. But really, when I say finding meaning, I don't mean outside yourself. You know, often when we're going through challenges like this, or challenges in our lives, we're asking ourselves, what does it mean? What does God want me to know in this experience? What is it that I'm to learn? How am I to manage this? You know, we can ask all those kinds of questions, right? But here's the thing, making meaning is not something outside yourself. It's about being still and reflecting. And God, what is it that you want me to learn, to know, to remember, to reflect on? How is it that I have the opportunity to grow? What is it that I have the opportunity to know? We are meaning-making beings. Now, some have said Mother Earth was tired of her children, so she sent all of us to our rooms in these isolation and stay-at-home experiences. That's meaning one person or some people have derived. Now, indeed, Mother Earth is getting a rest as we are polluting the earth less because there are fewer cars on the road and there's less industry happening and there are fewer of us outside polluting the earth with our rage and our anger, etc., toward one another. That's not to say rage and anger are not happening in our homes. There's lots that we really need to be praying for folks who are in domestic violence situations happening right. I know domestic violence increased, it skyrocketed in New York when the Trade Center was destroyed in 2001. It's skyrocketing around the world right now as people are trapped in some home situations. I'm praying for them with all my heart. So when I say making meaning, I'm not saying we're trapped so people who are abusers can abuse even more. No, that's not the meaning. I am praying that as those who are in violent home situations can make meaning for themselves and say, this is enough. I'm getting out of this. This is enough for me. This is enough for my children. I'm praying that children who are in those situations that they've been silent about, that when they are able to get out of their situations, they will say, enough, I've got to tell somebody. I don't know what meaning you will derive from this for yourself. That's for you. But make that meaning. Find that. But that only comes from stillness. Be still and know that I am God. And in the midst of that stillness, in the midst of that, knowing that God is God, even in this circumstance. The book of Isaiah, we are encouraged in the midst of the spirit of heaviness. Put on the garment of praise. I believe that worship and praise is something that can transform us unlike anything else. So be intentional about the kind of music you're listening to. Be intentional about the kind of podcasts you're listening to, the kinds of television you are viewing. Focus on things. I know we all want information because without it, many of us feel out of sorts, but be really careful not to overload yourself with information. Now is more time for inspiration. Put on the garment of praise. Listen to music that can lift your spirit and have you dancing. One of my favorite songs that we sing, the presence of the Lord is here. 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 And I just sing, there was a song I used to hear my mom sing back in the day. Blessed quietness, holy quietness. And she would sing and dance. I'm like, well, if you're quiet, how you going to sing? But she understood, put on the garment of praise. What assurance in my soul on the stormy sea. Jesus speaks to me and the billows cease to roll. There are so many songs, and they don't have to be spiritual songs or religious songs, but songs that uplift you. Put on the garment of praise. And if you need to do that literally, wear some of your favorite clothes. Some of us are not bathing very often or bathing every 1 or 2 days. Make sure you take showers and dance and sing in the shower. Or at least sing. Don't dance. I don't want you to fall. But sing in the shower. Lift up your voice in praise. Refresh yourself. Put on your perfume, even if you're not going outside. Put on something that makes you look good and feel good. Now, I put this on just to do this reflection, but I feel good wearing this. I haven't been wearing my little pearls in the house. Did it for you, but guess what? There was a benefit for me. Put on the garment of praise. Find within your stillness, within your reflection, find meaning for you. And you can then share that meaning with others that help transform the spaces that you're in. Extend compassion to others and yourself. Reflect on times you have overcome. And be grateful. Be grateful. Be grateful. God has not promised you only sunshine. That's not the way it's going to be. And on and on. I love those songs. But singing is something that gives me joy. And it need not be that you have a voice that others would pay to hear you sing. But sing. Sing as you remember what you've overcome. Sing as you are praying for others in whatever their circumstances right now. Have compassion that, yes, this is hard for you, and I don't take that away. But also suffer with others. Put on the garment of praise. The presence of the Lord is here, and God inhabits praise and makes sure that presence manifests in us. And we can't do that. I really bless you. We are indeed in this together. We do this together. Even as we grieve, even as we fear, even as we are not able to do the usual things, God is with us. And this might be an opportunity to reflect anew on who God is for you. If God is supposed to be a genie that makes it all magically go away, then you might be pretty angry right now. But here's a time to get to know God in some new ways, in the midst of your gratitude, in the midst of your remembrance of overcoming, in the midst of your meaning making, in the midst of your compassion. Give thanks and praise. Bless you. I look forward to seeing you soon, one way or other. Peace. Peace be still.